Welcome back, Lutz, to another segment of Beyond the Brochure. Here we have RHA President Matt Peters, and he will describe why he chose RHA and kind of notable accomplishments. So Matt, thank you for being on the show. So what year are you, first of all?
I'm a senior this year.
All right, what role in RHA do you serve?
I'm currently the president of RHA.
How long have you maintained this office?
So this is my second year as president of RHA.
All right, and so on RHA you do a couple of noteworthy tasks. Kind of what's the general position of RHA President, and kind of what does it entitle?
RHA President has a lot of different roles in it. I mean, it really varies depending on what we're working on, but I oversee and work with a team of 6 other executives on RHA, and we also work with a group of Residence Hall Council executives that can be up to 60 students if all positions are filled, and that's all 10 residence halls. We do the leadership development with them, training them, and then kind of serving as peer mentors for each of them. So that kind of encompasses the people I work with, and then we have all the meetings that kind of fit in within that, and basically serve to just enhance the on-campus experience and really advocate for the student voice of the residents on campus.
Okay, a few weeks ago I did an interview with the resident director of Foss and Flieger. So are you kind of an extension of what they serve as kind of caretakers for campus?
Yeah, I think that would be an appropriate description, and we have a really unique relationship with the resident directors where we kind of work with them on peer advising those residence hall councils. The RDs really get to see week to week what's happening with that in-hall leadership. But we kind of get to meet with those executives outside, so I get to meet with all the hall council presidents every week. So Joe and I have conversations sometimes about what's going on with the Foss or the Flieger RHC.
Okay, so kind of you get a kind of a different point of view perspective than what you get on the weekly interviews with the presidents.
Yeah, and it really kind of is interesting because you serve as an intermediate kind of between professional staff and students.
Oh, okay. Do you get a fancy little name tag?
I do have a fancy little name tag. I have a couple of those.
Nice. Only a couple of years on RHC?
Yeah,
RHA.
yep, two from that and one from a previous job as well.
Oh, that's cool. So being on RHA for 2 years, you would imagine that you have accomplished different things. So what are some noteworthy accomplishments that you've overcome or gone through in the last couple of years?
A couple of things I'm really proud of have just been really sustaining the success of RHA and building it up as an organization that really does represent the student voice. One way we did that last year was working on policy change in South Hall specifically. So we were able to push through changes to the alcohol policy in South Hall. Also making mixed gender apartments, which is a new thing for PLU, something that we're continually having conversations with students, faculty, staff, and administration about is really what should roommate assignments look like and what options should be available to students, which is something we're continuing to pursue and have conversations about. Another thing I'm really proud of is just making RHC more of a purposeful leadership position on campus. Something we've done in the past couple of years is really poured a lot into training those student leaders and realizing that RHC is not going to be their end-all be-all, but preparing them to make that a great gateway and transition to other future leadership positions on campus as well.
Okay, on the policy changes, how difficult was it and how much work did you have to put into kind of presenting your case in order to get the voice of the students heard? Because PLU being a dry campus, that must have been just running through hell and back to attempt to make it all work.
Policy change is a process, and it's something that takes months and months, and most people don't realize that. There are so many conversations that have to happen, figuring out what the administration is even going to consider a reasonable proposal, figuring out what information they want to see to prove that this proposal is actually worth considering. The conversations with students, so last year we held forums in 5 different sites across campus, invited students to come and share their voice and share their opinion. Scheduling all those, arranging all of that, facilitating those dialogues, seeking other student input, and then really putting together a proposal that considered PLU's traditions and PLU's values as a university, but also trying to establish a community that is best fitting of the needs of the students at PLU.
And you chose South because of its junior standing or above in the age, just so it was easier to kind of, did that kind of make it easier to transition from the old ways to the kind of new transition ways, or was it kind of just a non-factor?
I mean, ideally we went into it talking big picture, and you go into any policy change with your ideal goal of, well, if we could change it all right now, here's what we would want to be achieving, and here's where we would want to be next year. And obviously, through that process, you want to start with that dreaming, and you want to dream big. But especially when you're dealing with administration and dealing with major policy, there are always going to be things that you have to compromise on.
Okay.
So South was ultimately, I think, the compromise because it was a great testing ground.
Okay.
I think things like mixed gender apartments and alcohol are things that will probably continue to change at PLU over the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I wouldn't be surprised to see those things continue to grow, and part of that is just proving to the administration that PLU can handle it.
Okay. Will you take a sense of pride in knowing that you kind of started a definite change in PLU's policies, or is it kind of just going to be one of those things where it happened, it was cool, but?
I think if I'm going to be proud of something, I'll be proud of the fact that students were able to share their voice, and that students were able to push through something that they believed in. And I mean, I guess at the end you can look back and say, yeah, I'm proud of that, but you also kind of have to keep that mentality of, you know, you're always pushing forward and there's always the next thing. So right now we're working on more policy change. We're hosting a Residence Hall Congress next Tuesday in Ingram 100. 7 o'clock, it's open to all students to talk about the results of the recent survey we sent out. So we just sent out a survey and got responses from over 600 students talking about everything from visitation policy to mixed gender wings to alcohol. Nice. And we really want to give students an opportunity to come talk about that. Dr. Majovsky is going to be joining us, and it's going to be a rare opportunity for students to have those conversations with really the movers and the shakers in the room.
Okay. That's it for this week's edition of Beyond the Brochure. Tune in next week after Thanksgiving on Thursday night at 9 p.m. for News at 9. I'm Christian Dilworth. This is Matt Peters. Good night.